All right, let's dive into something truly profound today. We're going to explore the spiritual map laid out by Madame Guyon in her incredible work, Life Out of Death. It's this fascinating look at the different ways a soul travels in its journey back to God.
So, Guyon kicks things off with this really powerful metaphor that's going to guide us through this whole explainer. Think of your spiritual life as a river. And where does every river want to go? To the sea, right? That sea represents God. And the goal? Well, it's not just to get to the ocean. It's to become one with it, to completely merge.
But here's the thing, not all rivers flow the same way. According to Guyon, most believers find themselves on one of three very different paths. Three kinds of rivers, you could say, and each one is moving toward that vast ocean at a totally different speed.
Okay, let's start with path number 1. This is the most common one. It's like a slow-moving stream, kind of shallow, meandering all over the place. Now, the believers on this path are sincere, for sure, but their progress is slow because it depends almost entirely on their own effort, their own strength.
This path is it's a grind. Because they're relying on themselves, everything feels weak and painfully slow. Their spiritual life is this constant series of ups and downs, moments of intense effort followed by feeling totally burnt out and dry. Guyon has this great analogy. She says it's like a manual water pump. You only get a tiny trickle of water as long as you are cranking that handle with all your might. The second you stop, the water stops. They get trapped by their own methods, their routines, their disciplines, and they start thinking the tools are the actual goal.
Now, the second path, wow, on the surface, this one looks like the real deal. This is the dazzling river. These believers are moving fast. Their lives are just full of amazing spiritual gifts, incredible insights, visions, powerful experiences. To anybody looking from the outside, these people seem like spiritual giants. So you see the contrast, right? The first path feels like constant, exhausting work. The second path, though, it feels exhilarating. Progress is super fast, and there's this feeling of spiritual abundance. But, and this is a huge but, this very richness hides a really subtle and very deep danger. And this quote just nails the problem. The person on this path can get so mesmerized by the gifts, the feelings, the power, the experiences, that they actually stop chasing the giver of those gifts. They start enjoying the presence more than the one who is present. And this leads to this sneaky kind of self-satisfaction, a hidden spiritual pride.
Which brings us to a really mind-bending question. What if the very things that we call spiritual success, all the amazing experiences and gifts, what if those things are actually the biggest roadblocks to what we're really after, which is true union with God? It's this dilemma that pushes a person towards the third and most radical path.
This is the way of faith. And Guyon doesn't call this a stream or a river. No, she calls it a raging, unstoppable torrent. This thing doesn't just flow, it crashes forward, totally willing to be destroyed in its desperate rush to get to the sea. This is a path for people who are willing to lose absolutely everything, even their spiritual treasures, just to have God and God alone.
And at the very heart of this path is a total paradox. The whole foundation of this way is a process of being emptied out, of being stripped completely bare of everything the soul has ever leaned on. It is a painful, brutal journey of loss that somehow leads to the greatest possible gain.
Guyon gives this process a name. She calls it stripping. And it is absolutely critical to understand this. This is not something the believer does to themselves. It's a divine work. God himself starts to systematically take away every single support the soul has built for itself until the only thing left to stand on is God.
And this stripping happens in stages. First, she says, the ornaments are taken away. That's all the nice feelings, the sweet experiences of God's presence. Gone. Then, the clothing is removed. Your ability to do spiritual things just vanishes. Prayer feels impossible. Serving feels pointless. Finally, even your beauty is stripped away. Your own capacity to be a good person, to be virtuous through your own strength, that's gone too.
The result of all this is just complete desolation. The believer feels like an absolute failure. They have no gifts, no good feelings, no abilities, no virtues. They just feel weak, empty, and totally abandoned, even by God. This is the death of the self.
But, and this is the entire point of the book, it is precisely from this death that a new, unbelievable life springs forth. The river, now totally empty of itself, finally reaches its destination. And it doesn't just pour into the ocean, it is lost in the ocean. Its separate existence is over, and it becomes one with the infinite vastness of God. So what does this new life even look like? Well, it's the complete opposite of all the earlier struggles. It's effortless. Life just flows. It's not forced. It's governed by God, not by you. There's this deep, unshakable peace, this absolute rest. You're no longer trapped by your own limits. You become boundless, simple, and, here's the craziest part, more fruitful and life-giving to others than you ever could have been before.
This new existence is just full of these wild paradoxes. The believer is dead, right? Dead to their own ego, their own plans and efforts. But at the same time, they are more active than ever before, because now it's God who is active through them. And here's another one. They are utterly poor. They claim nothing for themselves, not their gifts, not their virtues, not their strength. But in that total poverty, they possess everything. Why? Because they finally have the source of all things, God Himself.
This is what it all comes down to, the great exchange. You lose everything that is yours, your self-life, your own strength, all those spiritual experiences, even your self-made virtue. And what do you get in return? Everything that is God's, His life, His strength, and His very being.
And so we're left with the question that sits right at the heart of Madame Guyon's whole message. It just turns our entire idea of spiritual growth upside down. It makes us ask if the ultimate goal isn't to become a better, stronger version of ourselves, but to lose ourselves completely. So what happens when you finally lose yourself, and in doing so, find everything?